All right, thank you.
Yeah. Is my microphone on? Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm used to hearing myself in headphones, so it's a little weird.
Yeah. So, give it up for Holly, the speaker before us.
Please. Also, make some noise for Lizzy and Beatdownking.
Yeah,
this is a fucking incredible thing to bring a scene together like this. I wish that stuff like this would have been around when I was a kid and coming up in the scene and, learning about what it is to be in a band and to run a business for the first time. It's a really, really cool thing. So shout out to them for putting this all together.
Yeah, so as Lizzy said, we do a podcast every week. We started streaming it live on Tuesday nights, and then the podcast comes out on Wednesdays. So we were actually thinking that we would just roll it like normal and just kind of do a live podcast, if that sounds good to you guys. We roll like a little intro.
Hell yeah.
All right, so you ready to get it going?
Awesome. So we're going to roll it, do the intro, there's music, and then we'll just start talking, basically.
Okay, cool. Thanks, you guys. Ready? Harrison? Yep. Oh, that's Harrison, by the way.
Oh, yeah, this is Harrison.
So Harrison is he produces the podcast, absolutely hates public speaking and being on camera or anything like that. So he's pretty horrified right now.
Give it up for Harrison. Come on. Make some fucking noise. That's
Harrison reveal. All right, here we go.
All right. Thanks, guys.
This is the KoperCrabb Podcast.
I am Cheney Crab.
I am Naveen Copperwise. Oh, the theme song didn't really come through that well.
Oh, it's all good. Someone just asked where to check out the stream. It's twitch.tv/KoperCrabb. That's KoperCrabb.
Yeah, and we also have the Discord going.
Yeah, we have a Discord. We'll probably post this tonight. So you guys, if you can't watch the stream because you're watching us in real life, you can check this out later tonight when we post it.
You can join in on the fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so I think we had an extensive intro about who I am
and also
earlier.
Who I am, yeah.
And, that was very nice. So as she said, my name's Naveen. I've been playing in bands and touring for all of my adult life. I started in the band Animosity, and then after that I was in Animals as Leaders for a couple years. I played on their second album, and then from there, kind of wasn't in a band for a while. I did some electronic music, that whole thing.
Every musician has to quit playing metal to do electronic music at some point in their life. So.
They have to either quit to do electronic music or do I don't know, they want to play funk or something like that.
Yeah, totally. Anything
think that they're above metal.
Yeah. They always come back, though.
Yeah, so
as Naveen did.
I did that for a little while, and then me and Cheney met probably 12 years ago.
Yes.
And we started the band about 7 years ago.
Yeah, we started the band 7 years ago, 2015.
Yeah, so we've been doing our band ENTHEOS for all that time, and we really have kind of figured out a lot of learning. What would you call it? Learning curves.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot of learning curves along the way. If you guys are wondering what that is, also it's people subscribing to our Twitch channel. So sorry about that.
But yeah, so about 3 years ago we started this podcast, and it was kind of, I guess, Cheney really wanted to do it, right?
Yeah, I'm way into a lot of comedy podcasts. So I wanted to start a podcast. It took me a while to talk Naveen into it, but ever since we started the podcast, I feel like we've really honed in on the community surrounding our band and surrounding the podcast. So it's been like an integral part of our band's growth and our career growth over the past couple of years. It's been a really cool experience. We have a Discord. We just started doing Twitch. We're on the internet, just like everything that Holly was basically just talking about. And I thought she had a lot of really good points that I think we could build on with, putting together a band, which is a brand. When you talk about starting a band, you don't really think of it as being a career endeavor. You just want to play music. And now what that means, we have to learn to be digital creators and money managers and all of these things for ourselves. And a lot of the way that we've been able to sustain this thing is through the internet. Back in the day, it was like you could get out and play shows and go on a 3-week tour, and that's how your band grew. Now the internet has become such a like central thing in that. And when you start getting on the internet, you want to like have your band, the branding of your band all put together so that you know what you're doing on the internet and you know what other people are coming in for.
Yeah, so that was kind of a thing that I think at the beginning of the pandemic, Chaney and I, we kind of, a couple members of the band quit, and it was just her and I. And so we were took a step back and really had to look at what is the band.
Yeah.
Because I think a huge problem is when you start a band, you're kind of just doing what's like right in front of you and sort of what you feel like doing at the time. And that was definitely our problem. We had kind of all these different influences, and we didn't really have a cohesive, easy way to put it together to deliver to people. Because if you don't have all that stuff pinned down, they're kind of just not going to get it. And I feel like that was a huge problem for us. Because even though we were doing cool music and maybe we had like, for example, a lot of different shirt designs, right? Like, oh, well, let's have a shirt design that these kind of people can like and these kind of people can like. And then, but it wasn't all put together in our own spin.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to kind of go off in that direction when you start a band because, you know, you're getting 4 or 5 people together who may all know that they like to play metal, but as I'm sure all of you know, there are a ton of different subgenres within metal. Being in a metal band can take you anywhere from being in like Parkway Drive to Cannibal Corpse to like Pig Destroyer, you know? So it's like having a bunch of different cooks in the kitchen can sort of scramble the idea of what the band is as a whole.
Yeah, so I think we're not saying that you should just follow the mold of one other band,
Absolutely
but
not.
What we kind of realized, and this was over the years, was our thing is like we're into sort of trippy stuff and we're also into death metal. So we made it real simple and we're kind of like, okay, everything we do is going to be trippy death metal. So it's like, for example, like the merch, it's going to look like this is an ENTHEOS shirt. It's going to look super metal now, but then on the back is like a kind of a trippy drawing with like an eyeball, and it's like, you know, so we're not trying to take like 50 million different things and put them together. It's kind of keeping it focused on what it is, and we've already seen like a lot of things change for us and growth of the band since doing that.
Yeah. I mean, when people see your logo or your emblem or the stuff that represents your band, you want them to think of your band. I feel like I've seen a lot of people around here with Rings of Saturn shirts on, or what I perceive to be Rings of Saturn shirts, because you know what their designs look like when you see them. It's a bunch of colors, a bunch of space shit, and it's all over a shirt. And you're like, oh, that's Rings of Saturn. There's no mistaking what they are, what their thing is.
Yeah, and then when you hear their music, it's like, okay, this is really, you know, crazy video game death metal. You know, it's kind of, it is original and it is new, but it's packaged in a way that people can understand. And that takes a while to figure out. Like even for us, even when we started the band, I was already 30 years old. I'd already been touring and been in pretty big bands, but we still didn't know how to do that. It still even took us 4 or 5. I mean, really, I don't think we're obviously still learning now, and we're still trying to grow the thing. It's not like I'm sitting up here saying like we made it, we're all good to go. Like that's definitely not the case, but these are things that we've picked up on. Yeah. And I think we're continuing to dial in, and that's kind of, we have an album coming out next year, and the first single's coming out next week. So I think with all that stuff, we really, on this release, it's our 3rd album, or we have an EP and 2 other albums. So on this one, we were like, let's really dial it in and look at what we did in the past and like, how could we make it better, you know?
Yeah. So one thing that we were super guilty of when our band started is listening to all the different t-shirt designs that everyone wanted. So we would end up with like designs that were super metal and then designs that were super prog and like, you know, like had tesseracts on them or whatever. And when you look at that merch, you can't tell what you're going to hear. You're like, what in the fuck is this band? I have no idea what they're doing because all the merch is so different and doesn't really make a cohesive package. Yeah. So that's definitely something that we've really been trying to clean up on. And that, like Naveen said, that doesn't mean copying anyone else. It means really being introspective, finding out what you are, what you stand for, what your band stands for, what you guys are all about, and then finding artists that align with that idea. There are all kinds of amazing artists on the internet. And you can pick one and have that person design a ton of merch spreads for you. I think that it is a common thing to see who the popular bands are going to for artwork. Maybe don't go to that person because you don't want your band's merch to look exactly like the big band right now. It seems appealing at the time, but then I'm gonna think that when I see your merch, I'll think that you're in a different band because it looks like that band's merch, not something unique that you're doing yourself.
Yeah, and you can also, I mean, obviously all of us, I'm sure, can agree that we do music because we like to do it and we want to put out what we think is the best thing, and we don't really want to be beholden to have to do it because or have to change how we sound in order to appeal to people. But you can say, I'm going to piggyback off of what I believe Holly mentioned before, you get a little bit of feedback. And so I don't think there's any loss in creativity for me personally to kind of, let's say I post an Instagram video. I post a lot of drum videos. That's pretty much all I post. And I get a little bit of a gauge. Like I started to notice, you know, if the drum videos that I post, if I do some fast double bass, they get more views. So what I started doing was every single video, I just start and then go into the thing I wanted to do. And it works, you know, so it's just little things like that you can just pick up on to sort of augment what you're already doing.
Absolutely, and
lean more into that direction.
Right. So the first thing I think we've touched on is to figure out what your band is, come up with the branding of your band. What do we look like? What does the stuff on the internet look like? And that you should stay on brand, more or less, with specifically your band's Instagram. You don't want, I think Holly was talking about, if someone goes to your band's page and sees a bunch of different flyers that have already happened and they don't really know what they're looking at and it doesn't necessarily draw anyone in. If your band page has a cool aesthetic to it, you see a bunch of different pictures, they all kind of match. None of them are the same post. There are creative ways to do the same post in different ways. You know what I mean? Use a different picture, but make the same post. Use a different video or reel, make the same kind of similar post. So make sure that your page isn't super flooded with flyers and that it's cool content that people want to see. There's a picture of your merch every so often, but don't make every single post about your merch or every single post a reel. Don't spam people doing the same thing over and over again, because that's kind of how you get unfollows on those platforms. People will get sick of seeing it, or they know exactly what they're seeing and they'll just scroll past it, and you tend not to get as much engagement going at it from that way. So I've always been a fan of, honestly, once shows happen, I will take the flyers off of our page just because it sort of litters our page. Or when we are talking about shows, you can do these cool slides on Instagram, Facebook. You can do several photos in a post. Use a slide. Make the first post a live shot. The second post is the flyer. Come up with ways to attract people to the same thing, but not overexpose the one picture that you're the one, asset that you have?
I think, so yeah, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were kind of, like I was saying earlier, we're kind of trying to figuring out what is the band, how are we going to keep going with this, and then, so we kind of got, I'm sure everybody did, got a little more into the internet, and I sort of honed in on Instagram, and a couple things that we noticed was, if you just put a little bit of extra care into it, like make something that you think is cool, or if you saw it, you'd be like, wow, that's really cool. So that could be, it's going to be different for everybody, but for me personally, I spent as much time as I could just making like my drum videos sound really good and look really good. I saved up, I bought these cameras, and so I think putting the extra care in there is really what matters.
Yeah.
Above all the little hacks and what time can I post this, or little ways to boost it, that works for sure, but at the end of the day, you have to make stuff that you're stoked about and that people want to see. And I think like the reason why I'm bringing this up is because like you were saying, you can't always be asking people for stuff. Hey, follow this, check out, our show. Like I would say have like 10 posts of just stuff for people to enjoy. And you're not asking for anything. You're just, and that's how you kind of just, people will start following you and all that kind of stuff. Like over the pandemic, I grew my page like 3x, just literally posting one really good, what I thought was really good drum video a week, and that's it. That's all I've ever done.
Yeah, and I mean, to get started in that, I think that, now being in a band does mean being a person on the internet. So it is sort of important if you aren't hip to like using an interface or tracking yourself. Those are things that you should learn about right now. If you want to play music, buy an interface. If you're a guitar player, plug it in. Just play a 30-second long riff and put it on the internet. A lot of people do covers. And I do think that covers do help. I don't necessarily think that they always lead people back to your band, but they will get eyes on you if you do a cover. I just wouldn't like do a cover every day, because I think that starts to become a spammy thing that people will sort of tune out. But maybe do one cover and then one cover as a reel and then 3 reels that are your band, and try to lead people back to that. And reels are like a huge thing to get into now. I mean, TikTok has been really huge for us in particular. It's really helped us out. I think it's a super important platform to get on just because of the organic reach that can come about with TikTok. And you can take those TikTok reels and put them on YouTube. YouTube is the biggest distributor of music in the entire world. That's so many people will hear about your music if it does well on YouTube, and the reel feature that they have now does get some of that same organic reach that people are getting on TikTok. Instagram also has a reel feature that gets great reach if you put stuff up there as a reel, and Facebook has a reel feature that I'm not really sold on yet, but it does exist on all platforms, so you can post those everywhere and just see how they do. So yeah, I think it's super important to get involved in creating videos. And there was a question asked after Holly came up and spoke that was, I put out an EP earlier this year. How can I continue to push out content with that EP? Well, I think Naveen and I can really speak to that, because our band has not put out an album for 5 years, which, as far as the album cycle thing goes in music, really what labels kind of aim for is a new album every 2 years. Now, of course, it's a huge thing to like put out singles and put out EPs in between that. But the reason I mention that is because in the 5 years that we've gone without putting out an album, we've grown our band more in the last 2-3 years than we did in the entire time previously to that. And that's all because we took our old music and we started putting up like 30-second clips of that music. And how long is this song? We play metal, our songs are like 4 minutes long, right? That's 8 clips that you can put up just off of one song. And you can continuously do that forever if you space it out correctly and really use the material well.
Yeah, and also if you're having fun while doing it, I think that's definitely my takeaway that I like to stress to people is it should be fun. It's the reason why we do it is for fun. And when I make a video, like I'm having fun while I'm doing it, and I genuinely like doing it, and I think that is going to come through more than anything else.
Absolutely, I agree with that as well. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to pump out videos just to make videos, because that's not fun. And if you're not doing it for the love of it, then, I mean, really, why play metal in the first place? We're not making a ton of money here being metalheads, you know? That's not really the goal. It's because we all love this genre of music. And that's really something that you have to keep in mind throughout doing all of this. And like Naveen said, I think that really shines through in whatever you do, and that helps attract people to you. Because I know that I personally am going to be more drawn to a super authentic artist who's putting their heart out there than someone who's kind of phoning it in. And I can tell that they're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely, like I was saying before, things that we've sort of learned along the way. And like Cheney said, a lot of the growth with the band has been in the last 2 years. And so, yeah, we cut a lot of clips of just song portions, or I'll just be like, here's a riff I'm working on. Here's a riff, you know, and just try to make it fun and, interesting. But I think that kind of another thing that I was thinking of is that there's definitely not a magic, bullet to just like cut through all this stuff. If I just figure out this one algorithm or whatever, it definitely doesn't work like that. I mean, we look at bands that there's always these outlier bands. There's usually like a couple, 2 or 3, that are like super big up out of nowhere. And and everyone kind of wants to be those bands, but the fact is, like, most of us, including us, we've had just a slow and steady growth, and that's just how it's going to be for most of us. Absolutely. Like the shooting star, like crazy band, it's just, that's great, but even they've probably been a band for a while.
Yeah, or have been invested in playing music for a very long time. Exactly.
So it's like, you shouldn't be discouraged because you're not blown up, up out of nowhere. It's fine. It's just, we love doing it, and things for most people do grow. Maybe you're not getting, now it's so easy to see all these numbers and all the engagement and all that stuff, and compare it to some other band that you follow and they have 1 million plays on a video or whatever. Meanwhile, you don't have that many, but maybe your video has got more plays than it did last week. And maybe some of them go down and peaks and valleys, but usually for the most part, it's going to grow, and that should be enough, I think, for you to feel good about it.
Yeah, I would say that on general, most of the bands that we hear about who are like a part of the touring circuit and doing that full time have really been bands for 10 plus years before everyone starts hearing about them. Of course, a lot of that starts in like building a local scene around you. It's also the internet with building a community around you. And like Holly was saying, you can use Facebook groups. We have a Discord, Instagram stories, and all of that good stuff. But it's also playing a local show every so often. And something that you want to do if you're playing locally, play like one good show every couple of months. You don't want to overexpose your local scene to your band. You want to have one show that you can direct all of your friends to so that you can pack out the venue and that helps show the rest of the world or the internet that you're a band worth listening to. It helps a lot. And as far as the Facebook groups and all of that stuff go, you can help build your reach on the internet. I know that I'm in this group called Technical Progressive Metal, Death Metal Sharing, whatever, and it's got like 37,000 people in it. And I've heard of so many bands that I never would have heard of, all because of that. So post your band in groups like that. Don't spam people, but I promise you that if the music is sick, then people are going to get into it if you promote it in that way. And you don't do it so much that people are like, oh, I just don't want to hear about this band anymore. Like,
absolutely. So how about some touring tips? You guys want to hear about some touring stuff? Does that sound interesting? All right.
Well, I was thinking that we should talk about like when to start touring and what kind of tours are worth going on.
Definitely. I mean, I think so. When this band started, we pretty much just any tour we could get, we would do. I think.
Yeah.
And in the very beginning, I think that's definitely the way to go. You have to just kind of take what you can, and it's not that it's fun because you're with your friends and having a good time and everything. But in terms of when you first start going on tour, it kind of sucks, right? I mean, touring
is really hard no matter which way you spin it. But yeah,
like in terms of there's not as many people there when you play. You're playing first. You're not getting paid very much. Blah 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 blah. But still, like I was saying before, you are growing your thing, and you're out there and doing it. And so we definitely just took pretty much whatever we could, and slowly over time, it's been working our way up here and there. But we'll go back to playing first. It doesn't mean like once you hit like, oh, you go direct support on a tour, you're now direct support on every tour. It's not like that. I mean, we're talking about some tours in the future, and that we're going to be first. So, and the last tour we did, we were direct support. That's how it is, and that's fine. And another thing that a huge thing that was really great for us was we toured for quite a long time and didn't really get paid at all. Like we just ate it, and we kept our expenses as low as we could while we were at home. And that way, when the tour was ended, we could make everything, at least pay the merch bill and, for the food and the flights to get the guys there. And then the rest of it, we would pay toward the van or just paying off whatever little debts we had.
Yeah, and I think, like, when you start thinking about touring, I think that a good way to get into playing shows, that first you should start with, like, regional shows. Yeah. Make friends with bands who are in other states who do sort of draw, and do show trades. It's an easy way to get in. Yeah, it's super low risk. You can do like a weekend run. Those are awesome, and it will help people in other states start to learn about your band. And then from there, once you think that it's monetarily feasible to go on a tour and that you think that the tour is going to do decently, I'm not talking about drawing 1 million people. I'm saying don't put yourselves in debt to go on your first tour, because that's the quickest way to burn yourselves out.
Yeah, and get members of the band to be like bitter or something. Someone might put the tour on their credit card and they're all pissed off about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not a position that you want to end up in, and that's why another reason why the internet can be so useful, because it can help build up a crowd for your band in another state where you're going to go and sell merch, and merch is our biggest moneymaker being in bands. And the more you sell, the more money you're going to be able to put back into your business to make it thrive even more. So on the note of merch, I think that, make sick merch. Make merch that people want to buy, and they will buy it. I've bought merch before just because I thought it looked cool, not because I knew who the band was or cared about that, but because it looked cool. You want people to walk up to your merch table and be like, damn, this is a really good selection, and want to buy the stuff. And one thing that we've been doing a lot that has been really cool is putting out limited edition merch runs. Yeah. It's really been a great thing for our band, because if you create that idea that, oh, I'm not going to be able to get this after the first 100 shirts are gone, it makes this like thing happen where people want to collect the merch, and every time we've taken a limited shirt out on tour and it's got that sticker on it that says limited edition.
You can also just put limited and it doesn't have to actually be limited.
Yeah, we've tested this. We've actually tested this. You can put a limited edition sticker on a shirt that is not limited edition, and that night, I promise you it will be your best seller. We tested it out on the last tour we did, and it happened. But
most of the time it is limited.
Yeah. But it's seriously, think of creative things like that make people want to buy your merch, because there are so many bands out there. I mean, there are millions of dollars to be spent on merch, and there's a lot of competition. So you have to make it a thing that's special that people want to buy.
Yeah, actually, the shirt that Harrison is wearing, I think, was that our first one that we did?
Second one. Yeah, that was our second.
So we had the idea. I was like, oh, let's go on YouTube and figure out, like, just look up a tutorial on how to tie-dye. I'm like, it can't be that hard. And so what we did was me and Shaney tie-dyed, I think we started with 50. We tie-dyed 50 shirts in our kitchen, and like I took a bunch of pictures, and we made, like, it was really cool. It was a really cool post, and it had me and Shaney like modeling the shirts and making them in our kitchen, pouring the bleach on them, and it kind of like told a story. And then we put them up, and they sold in like an hour.
All of them sold in an hour, which is crazy. I mean, we didn't expect that at all, but I think that when you create that idea that people aren't going to be able to get a hold of that, plus we made them, the band makes them, advertise all of that stuff if you do it. Say,
exactly.
This is band made. We took pictures of ourselves wearing the merch.
Like we send them out, Cheney sends them out.
Yeah, I still ship a lot of our merch, all of our limited edition collections I do myself. But that all helps. It makes people feel like they're a part of something, and they are, because it's something that you've put your heart into and you're giving it to other people, and that's another way to connect with your audience.
Definitely. That's definitely the best part, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that it's just a good thing to come up with creative ideas like that. And it's been really, really helpful for us.
And then we did it again with that shirt that he has on, and we made let's try to do 100 this time, and pretty much sold all those as well. So that was definitely cool. And then we can take that money, and that helped us fund the first tour that we did after the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so we had money just from that thing to fly the members out and all that stuff. So I think what we try to do is put as much as we can into the band, and then, like I said before, do everything you can to keep your expenses down. Like if you're in a band, don't, probably drive a car that you have paid for. Like drive a crappy car. Don't go take out a car note for $400 a month. It's going to be difficult to go on tour when you do that.
Yeah, or when you're, starting to tour and you need a touring vehicle and things like that, pool together money in your band or through merch sales to get a lot of that. Pay for the entire van. Go find a used van. Do it that way. That's something that Naveen and I have been huge into, is keeping our band in the green.
Just kind of going step by step incrementally, and that way everything is like good. But yeah, it's obviously really hard, and we had to work really hard, like working at our jobs and everything to make that work and really set up our life. I mean, we really set up our life in a way to do the band. Like, we rented a barn behind my mom's house, and that's where we lived. And I'm not kidding, it was a barn.
It was a full-blown barn, exposed to the elements for almost 10 years.
Yeah, so
because we didn't want to sacrifice playing music to have like a better living circumstance.
So I think it does take something like that in our sort of genre, or pretty much any genre, really. Just because you play like pop music doesn't mean you're gonna like blow up.
Yeah, and so you should expect to make those sacrifices. Expect to be working a full-time job for a long time, because even if you start touring and you're doing it all the time, it's only been this last year that Naveen and I have been full-blown working musicians, and it's because we spent so long working and busting our asses to do both things at the same time. We had to make money to put money into the band to keep the band rolling, and finally, after 7 years of work, we've gotten ourselves to a place where we luckily can just do music full-time. But those first 7 years, it's working. Naveen would work 60 hours a week and then come home and work on music full time.
Yeah,
and I would do 40 hours a week and then work on music full time. It's definitely like gonna be your second full-time job or your third full-time job for a very long time. And that doesn't change after you get management and a booking agent and a better guarantee and sign to a label. The workload, like there's no like golden pot at the end of a rainbow with being in a band.
Once I'm signed to this label, I'm gonna kick back and chill on. It doesn't really work.
It really doesn't. Label, like signing to a label is a great thing because they help a lot with distribution and getting your name into places that you may not be able to get it. And they help give you money for music videos and things like that in advance for recording. But the workload only increases. They're not going to make your career. There's so many bands who sign to labels, and that's the downfall of the band. The minute they sign to a label, they just don't know how to continue the work. They expect that someone else is going to pick up that load for them, and that's just not how it happens at all.
It's like, now you're just a team, and you add to it, and you just kind of spend your time doing other things. I mean, now, like Cheney said, we have been going more full-time with the band, but we don't work any less. We just have more to do with the band. And
honestly,
it's great. It's fun. It's just, that's what we want to do. We like doing this for the reason of getting to make music. So for me personally, that's why I do it. I like making music. If I had my way, I would never come out of my room, and I would just be in there with my laptop and my guitar, just making music and like sending it to my friends. But that's probably not in the cards for me.
Yeah.
So we do all this other stuff, and I've learned to love all the other aspects of it too. But for me, my goal is to be able to make music.
Yeah. And, I just brought up the label thing. So because of the internet, we don't really live in a world anymore where you need a record label. So I don't think that that's something to lust after or anything like that. Like, you can fully do all of that stuff by yourself. You just have to become internet savvy. Like, I can't stress that enough. If you don't know how to make videos, make videos. If you don't know how to get your stuff on Spotify, learn to do that. Learn to get your stuff on Spotify playlists. Learn to be your own manager. Do not, think that you're going to be able to find a manager or some person who's going to advance your career, because no matter what, your band is going to care about your band more than anyone else, no matter
and
what.
You want to be able to moderate those people, like the label or whatever. Like, hey, maybe they're not doing something that should be done. Hit them up. This needs to get done.
Yeah. For example, the last album that we put out, our label totally forgot that we had a music video for our second single. So I had to remind them after our album came out. And that's just how labels work. Like, they're working for so many different bands that it's hard for them to be laser focused on one band. So you really have to be your own advocate in all of these situations. So the more that you learn about what it means to run a business and the money and all of that stuff from the beginning, the better off you will be in the long run. Like, you can't pay people to get your band to places, no matter what. And
exactly.
So you have to be your own advocate and work for yourself constantly.
I agree with that 100%. Should we take some questions?
Yeah.
Does anybody want to ask a question?
Anybody got any cues?
We can also go to default to our trusty old Discord.
Yeah,
Is there any questions over there?
While we're waiting for some mics to be passed around.
Damn, Harrison's stepping up, dude, getting on the mic.
Jake Scrappile, good friend, asked, how important is quality/expensive gear for a newer band and their ability to begin building an audience at live shows? Do people gravitate to bands that have better gear?
Okay, I don't think so.
I
think
so
it
either.
definitely helps for sure, but I'm certain you could go on Instagram or go. Actually, you know what? This reminds me of something. So I'm really into production and recording, and when I first got into recording, I was at this used scrap store near my house, And I found this stack of recording magazines, and I was just flipping through one, and I remember it said, like a really good engineer could get on your setup that you have right now and make an amazing album. And like that always really stuck with me. And like for a lot of my, drumming career, like when I was in Animosity and even Animals and stuff, I didn't have endorsements, and I just used random shit that I would get on Craigslist and stuff. And so I really don't think so. I mean, people definitely are enamored with shiny stuff. It doesn't hurt by any means, but
yeah, but all that shiny stuff can't make you play well. It doesn't make you a good band. You can get on stage with like the Axe FX 3, the newest Axe FX, and have like the sickest Tama kit and Meinl cymbals and whatever. And you can still sound like crap.
Yeah, you can still sound bad or play music that no one likes, or not be, your passion might be more toward having an Axe FX than practicing or whatever. So it doesn't hurt, but I think the know-how how to make what you have sound really good is really what's most important.
Yeah, I remember actually specifically, there is a band called Trash Panda from Florida, and they opened for us on the last US tour that we did, and they were my favorite band of the entire tour, and they were playing through the crappiest gear that I've ever seen. They were just super tight and super sick.
Honestly, I thought it made it cooler. That they
I actually
was like,
did too.
This rules. Yeah, it was great. I bought a shirt from them.
Yep.
All right, we got any live questions out there? Okay, let's have it.
This one is for like vocalists and stuff. Okay, so Cheney pumps out like playthrough videos and vocal cover videos. What advice would you give to display that level of confidence for somebody that's never streamed or never put a video of themselves on the internet?
That is true. How do you get so much confidence, Cheney?
Thank you for calling me confident. Honestly, you're in a room by yourself. Just you kind of have to get the confidence in the room by yourself. That's like what being a good front person is in a way. You're stepping up on stage and you're ultimately like a cheerleader for a bunch of sick musicians, So the like having confidence thing, I think that it's something that you sort of have to manifest within yourself, but it's really easy to do when you're in a room by yourself, right? So just film yourself a few times, start to get comfortable with it. And you know what? If you're not super confident in the first couple videos that you post, you can become confident. You can build it over time. And the more that you do something, the more confident you're going to become. I know that the first vocal videos that I was making like years ago, they looked crappy. I wasn't very confident, honestly, at all. So it's just something it's got a progression to it, and the more you do it, the easier it's going to become.
And I'm sure at some point we've felt confident in one way or another, and we kind of know what that feels. So if you have like a little spark of confidence in you somewhere, it's like try to hone in on that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's kind of a more esoteric way to put it, but I mean that's, I think, a cool way to think of it. Like, all right, I'm gonna dig deep, act like I'm confident.
And I'll be honest with you, doing the like vocal playthrough thing is where I get the most nervous for some reason. I don't really know why. So it's something that I've also had to shake off. I can really relate to that. Like I'm way more comfortable getting in front of a crowd of people and doing vocals than I am just having a camera focused in on my face and doing vocals. But it's definitely a learning process.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, I hope that helps.
All right. Like how much money do you have to have saved, or? So the way we do it is we lay out what the expenses of the tour are gonna be.
Yeah, we have a budget before every tour. We make out a complete budget.
So we can kind of estimate how much it's gonna cost to do the tour. Like we've I don't do it on every tour. I was better about this, but I kept track of, on one tour we did, I was really meticulous and I kept track of like how much gas costs and all that stuff. So we have like a ballpark idea. It's obviously going to be different depending on how long the tour is. Do you have to fly, guys into town? We fly 2 people in on every tour. And so we have certain expenses that you might not have. But we try to make it out to where the way that we do it is we lay out the expenses and then we take what the guarantee is going to be. So that's how much money we're getting paid each night. And then that's usually not enough to cover it. It's not enough to pay for the merch bill and to pay for the tickets and the gas and all that. So we'll say, okay, we need to just take your deficit and split that up over the shows. So we'll say, all right, we need to make, let's just say it's $3,000 that we need. Okay, we need to sell $100 in merch a night in order to break even. And then we're like, I'm feeling pretty good that we could sell $100 a night in merch.
Yeah.
And then usually, so we'll know when the show's going on, like boom, we hit that $100 goal, we're good. And when it surpasses that, cool, we have some extra money to pay.
Totally. I'll have our merch person text me every night when we surpass the amount that we need to make in order to make money, just so that I know, like, okay, we did it at this show, good.
Yeah.
Now on to tomorrow.
But that could be a little different. I mean, maybe you get a really good opportunity and you're like, okay, we haven't toured before. We need $100 a night to do this, but we're not sure that we're going to sell the 100 a night, right? So maybe you could say, all right, well, we need to come up with 1,500, and then we need to sell $50 a night.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point, which is that you also, so baseline is come up with a budget, and then that's how much money you need. But beyond that, there are times when you have to weigh out, like, is this package worth us taking, even though we know we may not break even? For instance, we got an offer to go out with the Dillinger Escape Plan on the last tour that they did. And we were offered a very, very, very low amount of money, and we knew that we were not going to be able to break even. Yeah. But we also knew that Dillinger has an audience that would be really cool for us to expose our band to. So that kind of outweighed the monetary loss.
It's like, we're doing the tour, we're going to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, but yeah, if it had been something where the shows weren't going to be super populated and we were going to take a hit, maybe it's not worth doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of, it's up
that's
to
more
you guys.
esoteric, I guess, but yeah.
But I think that's an easy way to do it. And obviously you're not 100% going to know exactly how much it's going to cost. I mean, I know from the past, when you go on tour, you're going to plan on spending $500 or $1,000 on your van.
Yeah, I know.
Even if it's a new van.
We always add extra money for the van because the van can break down at any given time. So that's definitely something.
I mean, it helps if you have somebody handy. I hope you have somebody.
Yeah, you gotta have like.
I'm kind of handy. I was out in a blizzard. Like, I don't really work on cars, but I'm somewhat DIY. And I changed the blower fan for the van in a freaking blizzard, and it was really painful.
Yeah, I mean, one time the bottom of our trailer fell out, and Naveen, we were in the middle of Florida, and Naveen had to like get under the trailer and like bolt it with metal and stuff and put it back together so we could.
So I bring a toolbox. That's another thing that I do, and I do that because A, I like working on stuff, and then B, it would cost like if I had tried to get someone to fix the trailer, I don't even know how much that would have cost. So I'll just get out there and fix it. Not
to mention, it's very hard to find a mechanic in a like less than a couple hours notice because we're going into a city and leaving the same day. It's very hard to find a mechanic who can work on your van right there. So having someone who's learned something on YouTube about fixing cars or something is a really good advantage.
It definitely helps. Yeah, so we could probably keep going on that one all night. So I don't know.
Good question.
Yeah, thank you.
Who's next?
Okay, yes, we got some more questions. My nightmare was like, all right, who's got a question? And then no one wanted to do one.
I have a question about songwriting and your upcoming record.
Okay.
So, as a band and people, you mature through your music.
Yeah. Definitely.
good question.
Yeah, I think definitely both. And that's not to say, like, that's not to say I'm going to do something that I don't like because other people like it. You know, but I will you're going to get some feedback, and when you're playing your songs live, like, oh, that people really like that part. It's like, that's one of our parts. Let's make more parts like that, because it's obviously fun to have the crowd be into it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're kind of an aggressive band, and when the crowd moves, it's awesome at a metal show. That's something that you want. So, yeah, like Naveen said, we don't hyper-focus on that. Like, when we're in the studio, we're not like, oh my God, no one's going to like this part if we play it live. But it does become apparent when you play stuff live what parts people gravitate to more. Like,
and usually when the people are gravitating towards a part, you'll be like, yeah, I like that part a lot too.
Exactly. So it's something to keep in mind. It's not something to base your entire life around, because you don't want to get your band to a point where you're just serving other people, because you're going to hate it, honestly. But
that sort of shows through in terms of being genuine. People can tell, people can pick up on when you really love what you're doing and when you're doing it for some type of result.
Yeah. But with that being said, I think it's part of the natural process of becoming a better songwriter over time. And that's why I think it's so cool when bands like stick together and continue to write songs, because their music becomes like an even better version of them. And you start to kind of weed out the parts that aren't as good, and you write more of the parts that are good. It becomes more of like a condensed package of what your band is.
That's really what you want to do over time, is this is kind of, I think, the broader message to everything we're saying, is you want to distill everything into just taking that really couple of cool things that you figure out that are your thing and really lean into those.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what we did on the new album, like, a lot. I mean, we had done a bunch of tours and stuff, and so we kind of knew what was going to work.
Yeah, for sure. And we all know it feels really damn good to play a breakdown on stage. It's so fun, and there's a sick crowd reaction to it. Yeah. So chances are that you'll probably get inspired more off of those parts and want to write parts like that anyway, just because it's fun to play on stage.
And other bands, like, if we come off of a super death metal tour, when I get home, I'm like, oh, I gotta write some more death metal. Or if we do a more progressive tour, that'll rub off on me, and it'll probably rub off on you as well. Like,
yeah, totally. And with that, like, don't be afraid to take influence from your friends around you and like lift up the people who are playing the music around you, because I think Lizzy said this, we all rise with the tide, Yep. There's no like competition in music, even though it may seem like that, because certain people get tours and certain people get this opportunity. The best thing is to really support everyone, because we're all in this together, and it feels good. It feels good, and it will help you in the long run. No one wants to hang out with someone who hates every band and who is never supportive of any band. It's no one's going to reciprocate like enjoying your band if you're that type of person. So that's really important.
Hope that helps.
I've got one.
All right.
Beatdownking and Disarmor. What kind of... I thought this out ahead of time. Not going to articulate it.
All good.
Is it more beneficial to be in a signed band as opposed to being a DIY touring band? You hear so many horror stories of labels screwing over bands.
It's true.
Ending your project.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on the relationship with the label, and I think that honestly, if you are going to take the label thing, I think it then becomes important to have management. Although I'm not the type of person who would advocate for management from the beginning, because I do not think that is what you should do. I think you should be primarily self-managed as far... Like, here's a good example. Archspire, self-managed band, and they're doing incredibly well, right? They're on a label, but it's because there is someone in their band who can stick up for the band. So when you're on a label, the reason I'm bringing that up is because when you're on a label, like, having that manager there can really help. managers kind of step in when stuff becomes weird, and managers can kind of make situations pan out better for you. And they'll talk to the label and kind of correspond the things that need to be done. So
you're not always the best equipped to negotiate a deal when you've never done it before.
Yeah.
Like, like Cheney and I don't know what to look for in like a record contract or whatever.
Yeah.
So it does help in that respect. But I also think a huge thing is, not to do it too early. I think you see a lot of bands going DIY a lot longer, and that's because then they've already proven to themselves they don't need a label.
Yeah.
And that's like the best time to really do anything when you don't need it, because you have the upper hand. You're like, I've already got a pretty good thing going. We built it ourselves. We don't need you guys. We can just keep going. And that's how Cheney and I felt. We started the band and we immediately signed to a label, and it didn't go that great.
No, it was an actually bad decision.
It was really bad. And then we were like, well, maybe we'll just put this one out ourselves. We talked about doing that.
Yeah,
But we continued to grow the band on our own, and it took a while to get our album together. And honestly, the only label that we really even wanted to be on was Metal Blade. And we knew a guy there, just that we had known for a long time. He started working there, so it kind of came about a little more organically. And so I think that really can help give you the upper hand when you're not desperate.
Yeah, like building your band as a DIY band is going to give you more leverage when it comes to signing to a label and whether or not a label is going to screw you over.
Yeah.
You don't really want to be a band with no following and sign to a label right away, because the label isn't going to make your band that much bigger. They're going to get your name out there a little more for sure, but if you have your own following to bring to the table, then it really helps the label relationship work out for you a lot more. It helps what a label is willing to do for you. If you have a following, then a label will be like, okay, we need to invest a little more money into this band because they already have a following and we're already pretty confident that whatever they put out is going to do well. There are so many DIY people who are thriving and living as musicians because they make all of the money that is generated through their project. A label is not taking a percentage of that. Or if you have a manager takes 10 or 15%. A booking agent takes a percentage. So all of these people, like if you're going to let someone else mess with your money, then that person better be doing a job. And that means when it comes to a label, if they're going to be taking a part of your money, then you have to really feel like they are earning that money. Otherwise, it's going to end up really bad. Like you're not going to be happy in that position ever. So really, I think it's important to build yourself up as a DIY band and go as far as you can go and be a self-advocate, be your own manager until you really genuinely feel that other people need to step in because the workload is too big.
And then also that equips you to have more knowledge when you do start working with those people to
Absolutely.
See through the BS and everything. But that's actually our time. It's 2:45.
I'm down to do one more.
You want to do one
All
more
right,
question?
let's do it.
Okay.
Do one more.
I didn't want to stay up here.
Hope
forever.
that helps. We can talk more after.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, I'm Spence from Part of the City. I appreciate what you guys said about, for a lot of bands starting out, that merch is kind of their primary revenue stream, and they have to work on that. Could you guys maybe walk us through real quick, just what are some of the basic necessities a band might need to have when setting up a real starter kind of a merch with how many different things?
Okay.
How do you display? How do you decide how much to sell for? That kind of stuff.
All right.
Okay, so obviously right away t-shirts, like you need t-shirts. Hoodies will sell.
It depends on the time of year.
Yeah, depending on the time of year, right now is a great time to print hoodies. Hoodies will sell. I would go with those two right away if you're just starting out a merch booth. Also, vinyl, it really sells. It's hard to get vinyl pressed, though. It is really hard.
And it's also a lot of upfront money commitment. But people will buy vinyl even if they have never even heard your band before.
Absolutely.
But that might be a little bit later down the road. That you might do
Right.
that.
As far as displaying goes, The standard is you have a table, you can get these racks. I think they're shelves from Home Depot, and so many bands go out with those. You need just 2 of those. You can take that on the road with you.
Need to have
You
lights.
have to have lights.
They're not going to have lights for you at the venue.
They aren't. And take your own table, because some venues do not have tables. What was the rest of it?
Like items. So I always think it's good to have kind of items that can span a lot of different price range.
Absolutely.
So because some people only have $2, or they might have 20, or maybe they really like your band and they want to buy a more higher price thing. So we try to have like pins and stickers and stuff that are cheaper. Because you will find a lot when people come up, they'll be like, "Oh, I've only got like $5," and it's like, "Okay, here, buy these 2 stickers or whatever."
Yeah, you want to be able to give the person with the least amount of money something to buy.
Yeah.
We always have like a $1 item, just so not everyone has enough money to buy a T-shirt.
Exactly.
So
yeah, I'd say have a shirt, have stickers, or like we literally just buy them off of stickermule.com. So
yeah, source your stuff.
Promo code ENTHEOS. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, promo code ENTHEOS. So source your stuff. That's a big thing. Don't try to get all of your stuff through one merch company. It's very easy to go to one merch company and have them source everything for you, but they're just acting as a third party at that point, and they're making money off of you. For instance, with stickers, I go to Sticker Mule. I just get our stickers printed myself. If you're doing like tab books, go and get that made yourself. Otherwise, someone is going to take 50% from you.
I actually bought a freaking pin press thing off of Amazon for like $120.
Yeah.
And it's really solid, and I think I can make like 50 pins in 20 minutes.
Yeah, we also bought an embroidery machine so we can make our own hats.
That was a little hard. That was kind of
We're always trying to like think out of the
Yeah.
box as far as that goes. Our next thing is that we want a T-shirt press so that we can do our own limited edition drops without really having a third party. And then as far as pricing, so when it comes to tours, we actually usually have to base what we sell stuff up as off of what the headlining band is selling stuff for, so it's called price matching. And so say we're out with a band who's charging $50 for a T-shirt, we are obligated to charge that much. But when it comes to selling stuff at home, I always kind of look at the items and just, what are they worth? What will people pay for this? For instance, some of our T-shirts that don't sell as well, I put them for $15 on the internet, and then they start selling more. For limited edition bleach dye stuff, these were $40 a piece, and it's because we worked really hard on them, and people will pay more of a high premium to buy that stuff. So it all really comes down to all of that, and you have to take into consideration exactly how much you're paying for the item. Not every item is going to come with the same amount of return. Vinyls will make you money because you pay like maybe $11 a piece for a vinyl, and you can charge $30 to $40 for that. Or a T-shirt generally is between $5 and $7, and you can charge, $20 to $30 and sometimes $40 for that. So it all really comes down to the individual item and what you really feel that people will pay for it.
And people still buy CDs, believe it or not.
They do. Take CDs.
Yeah.
I meant to say that, yeah.
Yeah, I did with another project that I had. I went on a tour, and I was like, nobody buys CDs. I'm not going to bring and everybody was asking for CDs.
Yeah.
And those you can get for, if you're printing them yourself, you can get them for like $1 each. Like we print our first EP is not on a label, and we print that, and it's like, and you sell them for 10. So that's
I think we pay maybe like 70 cents a piece for
so
CDs.
that's a huge good item. And then you can obviously, if someone doesn't have enough money, hey, just take a CD for $5 or whatever.
Yeah. And I also think with merch, it's cool to think of like items that not everyone else has. Just study. I'm online. Naveen and I will look at the popular merch sites like every day.
I'll just go on Indie Merch and just look through all the designs and just see what's like cool right now. And
totally. And so we actually have 2 merch stores. We have an actual merch distribution site that's Night Shift Merch, and that's a guy who used to work at Indie Merch and split off from that and started his own company. And then we have our Big Cartel, and that's where I ship everything from. So I think having those 2 things really helps, because I ship everything from our Big Cartel, but when we're on tour, I can't ship everything. And I really have found that me shipping stuff and you know, if people write memos to us in our merch store, I write notes back to them. And it's like it builds this little thing that's cool. It's a cool added extra thing to do with your fans. And it just kind of helps build that community even more.
Personalized.
Yeah.
All right, well, hey, thank you, Lizzy, for having us. Give it up for Lizzy.
Give it up for Beatdownking, Total Deathcore. Thank you, everyone who's helping out with the event. It's really, really cool. Like I said before, it's so cool that they're planning on doing this every year because this is actually a big deal.
And I'm really, so amazed by how many people came.
Me too.
So, seriously, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys
for sitting there and
coming.
listening to us yap away. It's really cool. It's heartwarming, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
Dude, the metal community is amazing. I personally, Naveen and I met through this. I met the love of my life through all of my best friends in the world I've met through metal.
I'm the love of the life, by the way.
Through metal. So, yeah. Yeah, that's him. Not Harrison. I know it was a little misleading. But I've met everyone outside of my family who means a lot to me through this community. So it's really cool to be here with all of you. We just moved to Nashville earlier this year, so we really feel a part of the Tennessee community, and we're really, really proud to be here speaking with you guys. So thank you very, very much.
Seriously. We'll check you guys out. For everybody online, we'll see you guys next week. Peace.